What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
UFC Fight Night, Felder versus Hooker from Auckland, New Zealand, this past February 23rd. Just happened yesterday as I'm recording this. An earlier fight, still on Saturday, but an earlier fight. I think prelims started around 1. Main card started around 3, 4, something like that. ESPN Plus card, which is nice. You know, you don't have to shell out the big bucks for the pay-per-view now that they raised the price of the pay-per-view, because Disney apparently needs to make everything cost as much as possible when they own everything. So now ESPN pay-per-views cost more. But thankfully, this was just an ESPN Plus card. Got to see it from top to bottom, kind of. I wasn't super invested in this card. There wasn't a whole lot of necessarily a lot of fights or fighters that I was looking forward to watching. Of course, the main event, Dan Hooker versus Paul Felder. I was looking forward to that. Big fan of Paul Felder. Also a fan of Dan Hooker, kind of up-and-comer in the UFC. Paul Felder, a little bit more of a veteran in the UFC, slightly more. Not, he didn't come in. Man, I don't know. I don't want to start guessing how long Felder's been in there. But I also enjoy Felder as a commentator. I think Felder, not only his fight style, he's a really fun fighter to watch, really dynamic stand-up fighter, but just a really great commentator also. I love when he's doing the color commentary for the UFC. I think he's definitely one of the best. So I was looking forward to that fight. And then there was a bunch of other fights of people. I mean, being in Auckland, New Zealand, there's a lot of people, of course, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Thailand, from kind of that side of the world. So there was a lot of names I wasn't super familiar with. I was looking forward to seeing how Karolina Kowalkiewicz looked. I was a big fan of hers, but she seems to be on a downslide as far as her career. She's taken a few losses and just doesn't seem to be able to get back on the horse, as it were. Also a fan of Angela Hill, who just fought for the 6th time, I believe, in the last 11 months. She just fought 3 weeks ago on a card. I believe it was the pay-per-view card. This one, it was the second fight of the prelims, so it's kind of a... it's not even, she's just taking fights to fight. She's had more fights. I think it put up a stat that she's had more fights, or she's been more active. She's had 11 fights in 11 months. That's more fights than Donald Cerrone and what was the other dude's name? I'm blanking on the other dude's name. But there were 2 other fighters that had done 11 fights in like just over a year or something like that. It was like 360 something days, 370 days. So she came in just under that, getting 11 fights in 11 fights in, no, how many fights? Now I'm all mixed up. But I am a fan of Angela. Fan of hers since she was on the Tough show. I think that was one of maybe the last season I watched when it was the female strawweights. And apparently she was also on Rogan's podcast recently, the Joe Rogan Experience. And she was saying how she got into fighting just as a way to work out. And then she kind of got hooked on it and started doing competition. Before she knows it, she's in the Tough House and in the UFC. And she's just super green at that time and just wasn't able to improve fast enough to kind of get at the level you need to be at the UFC. So she went to Invicta for a while. I think she became a belt holder over there, which Invicta I love. It's, all female MMA organization. And then she came back to the UFC and kind of, I think, had some ups and downs early when she came back, but now she's been on a run. I think she's won like 6 of her last 7 or something like that. She has like 1 loss, split decisions that kind of don't go her way. This one ended up being a decision, but it was a pretty dominant win. It was a unanimous decision against Loma Lukbunmi. Good fight. just I enjoy. It's kind of weird. There's just certain fighters where they will just put hooks in my brain, and I'll just remember to follow them. It's just they stand out in some way, and she's just got a really fun personality. She was doing the Beavis and Butthead I Am Cornholio before weigh-ins, which is always, any kind of humor. I'm drawn to people who are funny or trying to be funny or just being fun in general. And Angela Hill is definitely that. So good win for her. Bunch of just overall fun fights, some fun knockouts. The heavyweight fight in the main event was pretty crazy. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, just a giant man, taking on another giant man, Ben Sassoli. But it ended pretty quick with a knockout. Kovacevic got another loss, pretty dominant loss. Jan Zianan beat her. Jimmy Crute beat Olenchuk with a Kimura, little arm lock. And a great fight to finish it off. I thought Felder won it. I thought he had easily the last 3 rounds. Especially, he was pretty dominant in the last 2 rounds. Except for Hooker got a takedown late in the last round, but really didn't do anything with it, which I hate. I hate that so much when, it depends on the commentary for the fight, but sometimes if somebody gets a takedown, especially if the people on commentary have, a wrestling background, like DC has been known to do this for sure. They think if they just get a takedown and then they do nothing with it, they think it's the most dominant maneuver you could do. It's a finishing move. It's oh, he took him down. It's he's not doing any damage. And that's what Hooker did. It was good game plan. It's always a good game plan to get somebody down, especially late in a round or late in a fight. You kind of just stifle their ability to put anything together. But I still thought Paul Felder did it. Dan Hooker was falling apart. If that went another round or 2, I think Paul Felder would have clearly got it. But a fun card overall. Nothing really mind blowing with that card. But moving on to next Saturday is another ESPN Plus card. It's UFC Fight Night. Benavidez versus Figueiredo from Norfolk, Virginia. That's February 29th. The flyweight division is still around despite Cejudo being stripped of the belt. I believe this is for the interim or just the vacant belt at flyweight. Benavidez has fought tons of times for the belt. It's almost like his last kind of attempt. I think he fought Demetrius 2 or 3 times. Because Demetrius, when he pretty much very selfish, which is fine. It's his own career, but never really did anything to promote the weight class. Never really did anything to promote his fights. He, it was all about this record that he broke where he defended it so many times. But most of those defenses were just rematches of rematches. Instead of testing himself against somebody who's actually would put up a fight, like when he was supposed to fight TJ Dillashaw, he was clearly scared because he used weight as an issue to fight Ray Borg instead. I mentioned this last week because Ray Borg fought, but I think Demetrius Johnson is, as far as people who are on the pound for pound list or used to be on the pound for pound list, highly overrated. Now, very talented fighter, but we never got to see him fight actual competition versus a lot of other pound for pound guys are coming up against actual competition. So we'll see what Joseph Benavidez versus Figueiredo. I got Benavidez. I would be surprised if he doesn't win it. But he could miss it out. Who knows? Maybe he just loses the big ones. But yeah, so should be some good ones. There's a women's featherweight, which is always nice to see them trying to build that up. Megan Anderson versus Norma Dumont Viana. There's any other Luis Pena. There's a lot of to be determined fighters in here. Nothing. Ian Kutalaba versus Magomed Ankalev. Should be fun. Should be a fun fight. Fun night of fights overall. Nothing again really. There's less in this card that I'm excited to watch than previous cards, but hopefully that means that there's going to be some really fun finishes, some really fun fights. It is ESPN Plus, so that's it's going to be very easy to watch for those that actually have ESPN Plus, which is always a plus because they make it very difficult, especially when the regular ESPN is involved. Because if you don't have cable, they don't care. But that's it for my MMA UFC talk. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Go buy my artwork over at inspireddisorder.com and save 25% when you use coupon code RTS. Follow me on social media at Ray Taylor. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!